Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Hungary is experiencing a significant civil unrest following the government's enactment of a law banning pride events and restricting agency rights. Assembly rights, I beg your pardon. The situation was exacerbated when members of the opposition party were allegedly attacked during the protest, an event that led the opposition leader to accuse Prime Minister Orbán of inciting a civil war. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments is Jakub Jaraczewski, Research Coordinator, Democracy Reporting International, a Berlin-based NGO working on supporting democracy, human rights and the rule of law worldwide. Mr. Jaraczewski, welcome to TVP World and thank you very much for taking the time. Okay, so this new law has been enacted. It's banned pride events. How does this fit in with Prime Minister Orbán's political agenda?
Well, the ban on the pride marches is in a way a follow-up to an earlier law which aimed, under the pretense of protecting children and families, at removing promotion of LGBT rights and LGBT content, and is in a way an extension of a longer trend by Prime Minister Orbán and his party Fidesz to position themselves against LGBT rights. This has been quite a long story, and I see the current event as another escalation, a far more direct one, as the earlier ban on LGBT content has been quite nebulous and its enforcement has been uneven. This particular ban of pride marches is a very direct expression of this anti-LGBT sentiment.
Okay, well, that's fine, but many are saying, well, you know, there's a lot of time and effort going into something like this, when that time and effort should be used on improving the economic situation and perhaps the relationship between Hungary and the European Union. What would you say to those people? Is this just a distraction?
I would say that, in a way, this development fits into a certain pattern which Prime Minister Orbán has been following for a quite long time, which was namely making actions that, in his view, most likely are aimed at provoking the opposition into action and provoking the opposition into taking a stance, in particular on cultural issues. Prime Minister Orbán is facing an increasingly popular opposition party, TISA, led by charismatic firebrand Péter Magyar, who previously used to be member of Fidesz and an ally of Orbán. TISA positions itself as a centrist, but a conservative party, one which does not take pronounced liberal positions on cultural issues. And I believe that the thinking of Viktor Orbán might be that in doing so, in banning the pride marches, he wants to force his primary opponent, and frankly the only opponent, as TISA is currently the principal opposition and the only major opposition party in Hungary, into taking a stance on cultural issues. And this playbook has been employed by Orbán in the past in various ways, in attempts to goad his opponents into taking a stance on cultural issues, taking a stance on topics such as the millionaire George Soros, who is seen by Orbán as an enemy, and then to exploit their commitment to protect those values and painting them as anti-Hungarian or contrary to conservative Christian values that Orbán professes to support and base his ideology around.
Now, the TISA has said that basically the way that protesters are being treated is likely to incite some kind of civil war. Is he overstating the situation, or is there some real tension in the population there?
I don't think that there is a danger of civil war in Hungary. I think that this particular line of response to what Orbán has been doing is an attempt by TISA and Magyar to dodge the whole cultural war issue and not to get pulled into declaring whether TISA is supporting LGBT rights and whether it is supporting pride marches, but rather to turn the narrative into a discussion on splitting the Hungarian society and inciting unrest. I think that TISA is very well aware of how successful Orbán has been with provoking the opposition in the past. His previous opponents have largely failed to avoid these traps, and now is attempting to get away out of this situation by turning the discussion into something entirely else.
Understood. Now, what is the situation on the ground in terms of the protests, and how much opposition is there to the opposition to this law?
So we're seeing massive protests in Budapest, and in a way these are protests which we have been seeing for a very long time, because since many years the people in the capital of Hungary have been able to rally together and to appear in large numbers to protest against various policies of the Orbán government, not just related to LGBT rights, but also related to corruption, related to respect for EU law, related to treatment of minorities, and so on and so on. And of course, these are important images, but one very crucial thing to remember is that there is this old running joke that there are two countries, Budapest and Hungary. The countryside, where Orbán has significant support, and the smaller cities and towns, there the situation is markedly different. And the big liberal cosmopolitan city of Budapest is an entirely different matter in terms of politics and culture. So always when I look at the protests in Hungary, I kind of try to look into beyond Budapest and into what's happening in places such as Debrecen or Győr or other smaller cities, where there we see protests, where there we see significant uproar. Then that means that the topic is resonating much more broadly in the Hungarian society. Ultimately, Hungarians are still a mostly conservative society, which he keeps close to traditional values. And so seeing what is Budapest happening is only partially representative of the whole country.
Understood. Now, there is, of course, talk of the use of facial recognition, cameras, software, and so on, and that's embedded in this new law. How does this relate to Hungary's responsibilities in terms of maintaining civil rights, especially as a member of the European Union?
Of course, every use of tools such as facial recognition raises significant concerns for protections of the right to privacy. And this is a very much not only an LGBT rights problem, but also becomes a broader human rights problem. After all, it is not only LGBT people who march in pride marches. There are also many people of other sexual orientations who join those demonstrations in support and acknowledgement of the support for sexual minorities. I think that this particular part of this law raises a significant concern also from the point of view of the European Union law. We have the data protection regulations, and we have other EU regulations that speak directly to collection of personal data and its use. And I believe that this perhaps will make it easier for the European Union authorities, if they will pursue this, to move against what Orbán is doing, launch an infringement procedure by the European Commission and to investigate the situation. But of course, this will take time, and the situation in Hungary is unfolding very quickly.
Yes, but I mean, you know, the European Union has launched taken such steps in the past with very little actually being achieved at the end of the day. Do we expect any action they take now to result in something different?
So the issue with the EU's reaction towards what is happening in member states and generally, because the situation also speaks to the reaction of the European Union to what's been happening in Poland and other countries, is that ultimately this is all happening very slowly. we are still right now seeing the European Commission putting Hungary before the Court of Justice of the European Union over the earlier anti-LGBT law. This whole procedure took years and it's still ongoing with the case being proceeded by the court. So whatever the European Commission would launch right now would ultimately probably happen way too late in order to have any effect on what is right now unfolding in the country.
Well, on what grounds can the European Union take action?
What we've seen so far tells us that the most efficient way the EU could act is to withhold funding from Hungary using the rule of law conditionality regulation. But in order to do this, the EU must draw a clear line between what is happening in Hungary and the danger to common EU values, in particular the rule of law. Drawing this line in case of minority rights might be more difficult, as the EU relies on different tools for enforcement of protection of human rights. However, it is clear from the previous experience that the only language that Viktor Orbán respects when it comes to enforcement of value is the language of financial pressure. We have seen some limited success that the European Union has had with withholding funding and with forcing Fidesz to abdicate from some of its plans. Perhaps that would be possible now. However, the reaction would have to be fast, decisive. It would have to incur actual financial pain on the Hungarian government, which is facing an increasingly weak economy and uncertain prospects for the future.
Now, of course, we know that Prime Minister Orbán has quite a good relationship with Vladimir Putin. Is this an opportunity for Putin to come to Orbán's rescue if the EU does take action in this way?
I think that one of the red lines the European Union has with regards to Orbán in Hungary is a red line of receiving direct support, for example, financial support from Russia. That would be indeed a massive escalation of the conflict that the Hungarian government has with the European Union authorities and most of the member states with regards to values. I expect that the Russian government might support Orbán rhetorically by speaking publicly about how it supports the moves by Hungary. After all, the anti-LGBT ideology is also very strong in the Russian government, and pride marches and other expressions of LGBT identity are banned in Russia. So we will probably see of that. However, I do not expect any direct support beyond that. I think that the other EU member states would be very quick to react if Orbán would confirm a certain lingering suspicion that he is, in a way, a representative of Russia within the European Union, representing interests of Vladimir Putin at this very difficult time.
Understood. Well, thank you for laying that out for our audience, Mr. Jaraczewski, and we look forward to welcoming you again on TVP World again in the not too distant future.
Much.
Have a good day.
Have a good day as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
And that's all from this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.